Film Rage presents Verbal Masturbation with Bryce and Jim. All right, this week we are talking to writer-director of the 2020 critically acclaimed film Uncle Peckerhead, Mr. Matthew John Lawrence.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, welcome. Us little Canadian boys in the small city of Calgary are so honored to have you with us. And we play a little game with our guests. It's very quick. It's just to get everybody loosened up. It's kind of like mental gymnastics before we start to get yourself loosened up. And we call it OR. I usually like to go into long, tedious explanations about what OR is, but
self-explanatory.
Yeah, but Bryce thinks that you'll be able to figure it out, and so we're just going to go right into it. So, seeing as Uncle Peckerhead is a punk film, which is where my roots are, I am going to go way back and give you your first choice is the Dickies or the Dead Kennedys.
I got to go. I love on both Dead Kennedys though.
All right. Anne Rice or Stephen King?
You know, this is going to be embarrassing. I've never read any Anne Rice, so I got to go with Stephen King.
Okie doke. You do not have to feel embarrassed. I'm sure she's never read any of your books either. The Islanders or the Rangers?
Oh, got to go Rangers all the way.
All right. Going way back in time, Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing?
Man, that's good. I got to go Christopher Lee.
Okay. Going for longevity. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast Zombies or Shamblers?
Shamblers. No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. Romero all the way.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay. And this may offend a lot of people in the world, but we're happy about that because that's what we do here on this podcast. Australia or New Zealand?
I got to go. I mean, if I pick New Zealand, my Australian friends would totally disown me. So I'm going to go with Australia just because I don't have any close friends from New Zealand. But I love both. Both countries are great in my book.
Nice. Okay. And the last question. I want to usually ask 50, but Bryce cuts me off early, so because he's a dick sometimes. But I'm going gorilla.
Goes on, man.
It does. Gorilla or gorilla? Gorilla or gorilla?
Oh, I got to go gorilla.
Okay. All right. Going for Kong. Picking Kong over Che Rivera. I got it. Nice.
All right, let's get into it. So we were lucky enough to see the film on the festival circuit last year when Peck came to our little film festival here, Calgary Underground Film Festival. At what point did the festival circuit end for you, and did you get to attend any?
Oh, man. So with the festival circuit, we got to attend our first festival. So really this is what's so sick. I mean, and again, all things considered, you know, you find yourself very privileged and lucky, but we only got to attend one public screening of our film, which was at Panic Fest in Kansas City. And that was pre-pandemic. Unfortunately, yeah, I mean, all of our festival showings, I think there were only a couple that were in person. We didn't get to attend any of them after Panic Fest. And it's still going. I mean, we're not playing. I don't think we're playing any in North America, but occasionally I'll hear from our distributor saying that we're playing in like Europe, or I think we were playing somewhere in South America, maybe in Argentina. But no, unfortunately, we didn't get to attend any but Panic Fest. So we're hoping to maybe in this next year, just kind of do some one-offs, possibly at Draft House or just at independent theaters. Like a couple of us that made the movie are living in Philadelphia now. So
okay.
I'm reaching out to like the Philadelphia Film Society, just hoping to put something together.
Nice. That's kind of weird though. Like, normally once it's released and you can buy it or VOD it, usually it doesn't play festivals anyway. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it just might be some of those countries probably we haven't been distributed internationally, like in that area of Europe or in that part of South America. So that's cool. I mean, because you start to see, whether it's on like Letterboxd or Twitter, or like somebody will like you'll see like either like a couple dozen follows, or people just kind of like writing about the movie. And obviously you can see like many of them are from this one country, so you can kind of connect the dots.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome.
All right. So 100% on Rotten Tomatoes last time I looked. How does that feel?
It feels great. It feels great. I teach at a college, so that's like one of the, because they just I don't think they really get kind of the type of movies that I make. So like they're constantly kind of comparing it to like an article in a journal. But one of the things that I think kind of it's lucky that it's been so mainstreamed is if you're able to say like we're 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, then that kind of like clicks in their head, because a lot of them kind of understand what that means. And it doesn't matter that there's only like 15 fucking reviews being counted.
Take it.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't really give them much context. It's just, it's 100%. So yeah, I mean, it feels great. It's amazing. I never thought that the movie would be 100% even with like 3 reviews. So I'm totally stoked.
Yeah, well, fuck you, IMDb. That's what I gotta say.
Oh man, yeah. Fuck that place.
Yeah. Okay, so you just mentioned you're a professor. So how does it feel to be a professor and teaching kind of the craft that you're working in? And how does that feel? Like, how are I guess I'll call them kids, but I guess they're not really kids, the young adults. How do they feel about being taught by someone of your caliber?
I mean, I think many of them also like don't, because it's weird, because when I went to school, I would research my professors and kind of like get an understanding for like what they did and what they're all about. I don't think many of my students do. That's not to say that I don't love teaching or I don't love my students. I just think they don't know, like they don't really, because even when I mention kind of the movies that I've made, or I link them to kind of trailers and stuff, I don't think many of them kind of click on that stuff. So one is like, for the few students, I think there's a few students that kind of have watched the movie and are kind of really stoked. And then some of them, unfortunately, follow me on Twitter. And like when they see like, Jeffrey Dean Morgan or somebody kind of tweet at me, or Chris Gethard or something like that, they kind of like, they flip out and they think it's really cool. But I think most of them like don't, like it's just, I'm not even on their radar. You know what I mean? Like they would never watch this movie. They're not particularly interested. But teaching's just, it's amazing. I mean, like, especially at this point in my career, like I'm just kind of talking about, like teaching them about stuff that I really care about. And the place where I teach now, it's amazing. The kids are really motivated. They're really kind of smart, savvy. And I teach a lot of intro classes. So you get to see kind of, they come in and you think they would know what they're doing because they have a camera on their phone, since they were, a kid, but they don't really have a lot of the skills, the foundational skills they need. And a lot of them are so motivated that by the end you can see this like exponential kind of like jump in skills. So it's really cool. I love teaching.
Yeah, that's got to be rewarding. I mean, okay, so here's a question that's kind of a spin-off of that. So you're in Philly. It's our goal to get to Philly, mostly just to get in the same area of the mall for Dawn of the Dead, which is my goal in life, to finally get there. So if we're passing through town, are you going to be doing some weekend special? We can hire you to do a special class for a bunch of podcasts. We'll bring them all in for you.
No, dude, come on by the Philly. We love, like my wife and I, the reason why we moved here from Brooklyn is it's so much cheaper. So we were able to buy a house with like a backyard, which I haven't had in like probably like 15 years. So yeah, I mean, we love hosting. Come on by. We'll make some movies. We'll drink some drinks. We'll eat some good food. The food game in Philly is absolutely outrageous. As like an amateur foodie, it's one of the reasons why I like kind of geeked out when we moved here. And now that stuff is opening up, it's been a dream.
Yeah, I'm a big foodie myself. Actually, I'm gonna say Bryce is the opposite of a foodie, but he does love good vegan food. So
hell yeah. Bryce, I mean, really, so my sister-in-law is vegan and she was staying with us the past week. and Philly's like known for its vegan cuisine, because it's not like in New York, it's either it's like a vegan restaurant or it's not. Most places in Philadelphia, there's like for every restaurant, there's like a significant chunk of the menu is dedicated towards vegetarian and vegans.
Excellent.
Grace. Now,
Yeah.
you know what we're doing next year, buddy. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so the trilogy, it's official, I understand, is what I'm seeing on the World Wide Web. What more can you tell us about and is the working title is supposedly Larry Gone Demon? Is this true?
Yeah, I mean, so it's official in the sense that a script is written and I'm actively trying to find funding. But yeah, I mean, like, so it's weird with the Duh universe. There's Peckerhead, and I have like a Peckerhead 2 script that I really want to get done. But really, I mean, what's crazy is Larry Gone Demon was the first Duh script that I had written. And it was like I made a short that didn't involve Duh, that kind of took the premise that used the premise that I have for the feature of Larry Gone Demon. But then I wanted to turn it into a feature and kind of make a bunch of changes that I didn't like about the short once I had made it. So that's really one of the first feature scripts that I wrote that I was really happy with, that I was like willing to kind of like go all in and kind of make it. But then I wrote Peckerhead right after, and I ended up liking that more, and we ended up going with that. But yeah, I mean, it's a trilogy. The Duh trilogy is basically like, Uncle Peckerhead, and then hopefully Uncle Peckerhead 2, but that doesn't even count towards the trilogy. But then Larry Gone Demon. And then I'm starting to kind of like flesh out a treatment for kind of a werewolf movie involving the band. But yeah, it's just kind of like, I've always imagined Duh's kind of like a Hanna-Barbera kind of like, or yeah, like
it's like the Mystery Machine, but
exactly.
with Duh. I love it.
And they just get into different misadventures, which I'd love to do it. I mean, like, I'm so open that I would be totally like pleased as punch to do it as like, these 90-minute installments, or to do it as like kind of like a short form series where every season is like a kind of a different meditation on a subgenre, and like horror, or even I have sci-fi ideas and stuff like that. But I always would love to do just kind of like have them as kind of like that group of kind of, kids just kind of getting into trouble and scrapping.
I love it. Oh my God, that is so good. So that brings me to in my opinion, the most important question that we're going to ask you today is your Judaisms. So are we going to see more Judaisms in the trilogy? Because that was as I'm watching the movie, I'm like,
you're frozen, Jim.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim. Like Judaisms as in.
Where had they used Judy's name in different things, where they would compare
like
her
Judy Pie.
Yeah, Judy Pie and all the Judys that they use. I absolutely love that.
Definitely in Peckerhead too. There's a bunch of that thrown in there, and that's like, I mean, that's shit I do with my wife, because her name's like Wiki, so I'll call her like Wikenzo, and like I'll just kind of like riff on different, like every week riff on a different nickname for her. Awesome. So yeah, there'll definitely be plenty of Judaisms in Peckerhead too.
Nice. Yeah, I actually do that a lot with my friends too, so it kind of annoys them. Our buddy Murray, who's our third of our podcast, I've called him Merman since probably the day I met him. So, and he doesn't look anything like Ben Stiller from Zoolander, but he can pull it off, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing with like all of my friends. It just gets boring calling somebody the same name, so I'll just riff, just improv on it.
Exactly.
All right, so now it's time for the hardest question of the day. What is your favorite horror film of all time? And you got to pick one.
Oh, guys. Goddamn. This is very, very tough.
Okay, give us a couple.
Okay. I mean,
you're weak, Bryce. You're weak.
It's really, I mean, like, this really isn't a cop out since Jim mentioned it, but the OG Dawn of the Dead, the 78 version, is like definitely in top 5. I I'd say, oh man, this is so tough. I'm like, I mean, I know Alien is both sci-fi and horror, but the OG Alien is like one of my favorites. I mean, those two movies I've been meditating on a lot because I've been thinking about like what movies I've watched the most in my life, and those are two horror movies that I've probably watched at least twice a year, every year since I was like, whatever year you discovered them, like
Yep.
13, 14. I mean, and then like, Return of the Living Dead, I love. The OG Halloween, I love. Friday the 13th Part 6, I love. Night of the Creeps, I love. I'm sure I'm like forgetting. I'm sure like I'm so excited to see the new Candyman, but the not the now it's the original Candyman. I really love. Oh man, Texas. Probably Texas Chainsaw Massacre is definitely in my top 5 too.
Yeah, the original.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's one that I show my students, and it's just like every time I watch it, I'm surprised at how much it still kind of works on me and kind of unnerves me. And this is like, you've watched it probably like 35, 40 times, and it's still like
it still brings you, it still brings you right into the story.
Yeah.
Like you are there feeling the terror with these kids.
And it's like, especially being on such a strap budget, like shoestring budget, like small crew, just like being able to use like a few spaces and just really be able to create a sense of dread. And it's like a movie that's like completely, like, I haven't seen anything kind of capture that type of wild, scary energy. And it is like one of my favorite endings of all time. Yeah, I mean, all those kind of mixed together, like ones that I can always return to and find different things to kind of love on and find the same stuff that I've always loved.
Yeah, it's funny how you can have these meditative films that so well, and you just go back to, and it's funny. I like, same for me for Dawn of the Dead. It's my favorite of all time, and I'll go back and watch it usually once or twice a year. It's like, oh, it's my birthday. I guess what I'm going to do today, and then you'll watch something, you'll go like, wow, I can't believe I've seen this over 500 times and I still see stuff in there. I'm like, okay, that was cool. I missed that the first 499 times, right? So it's yeah.
I mean, the opening of that movie is, I mean, I was watching it just to kind of like get inspiration for something I'm writing. And just because I love this idea of like just like a chaotic opening where it just like thrusts you into something and you're just kind of like trying to get your bearings, and it's like it has like kind of the Altman-esque, like people talking over each other and just kind of frantic, like cutting, but is also like eviscerating like news media, like in 1978. I mean, it's like it just hits on so many parts, and like it's such a good, just like, we're just gonna drop you in and just like buckle up. Yeah, I mean, that movie you can't go wrong with.
Nice. So, other than potentially money, what caused the big gap between Peck and 2 Pints?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, money. I mean, it's just you hit the nail on the head. I mean, 2 Pints was like really like was so not bad, as in the experience wasn't bad, although it was like we made it for like under 30 grand, and it's like I went literally bankrupt. I like I went bankrupt mentally. I went bankrupt, emotionally I went bankrupt. So it was really tough to kind of get back to the black. But yeah, I mean, it was just like no money, just like trying to get money, like a project that I'm trying to get off the ground right now that, like, fingers crossed, is this movie Bloody Axe Wound. And what happened is, after 2 Pints, while I was kind of getting myself back to kind of like to above sea level, I started developing this movie. I'd written the script and I'd taken it. I belonged to the Brooklyn Filmmakers Collective, the Writers Workshop, and people really like loved on it. And they're like, you should really try and get this, like try and like meet with investors. And I got some contacts, and I got 2 actresses signed on. One was Sunita Mani. She's been in Glow. She's been in like a bunch of stuff. But they gave their name so we could raise money. We ended up raising like maybe like half to like 2/3, between half to 2/3 of the budget. And it seemed like we were going to make it. But all of the budget that we had kind of accumulated at that point, where it was hinging on this date, that we needed to get to this number by this date. and we didn't get there, and the money got pulled, and we've been working on that for like
man.
2 years, and it was like, dude, I'm telling you, it was like one of those moments where you're just like, is this what I want to do? You know, you're just kind of like having this crisis of conscience. So what had happened was after that went under, I was like, I'm gonna try it one more time, because I learned so many lessons on Two Pints, just as far as like as a director, as a producer, as just as somebody being able to get a movie made. So I was like, I'm gonna just depend on myself and try and get a movie made, and that'll be my last shot. And that was Peckerhead. Was basically like, it was like I put in like probably 2/3 of the budget, with like the help of my wife, and then we cobbled together just like friends and family, just putting like, you know, 1,000 here and there, which was like exceptionally kind of them and like really helpful. But that's Peckerhead was just kind of the last dash effort to kind of try and make a feature-length film. And thankfully, I mean, who knows if it's going to work, because it was basically, I just want to make more movies. And I'm still seeing if we can get something made, but yeah, I mean, that's the reason why there was so much time, is we had a project for like 2 years. It was just like money issues.
All right. So with that in mind, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so okay, with the buzz that Peckerhead's getting, like, are people not now just wanting to throw money at you? Like, here, look at how great this is. Here's money, 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 money. Or is there like, because you've got like a fandom that's happening? Do you think if you went to like a Kickstarter or something like that, where all your fans who love the film could throw money at it?
Yeah, I mean, Jim, I mean, that's kind of like the real the real question is like, so there's a few projects that I've had like interest in, and it's just like a slow go. And like the thing is, like, I don't think I'm like well connected in that world, so I don't know if like the slow going is just normal, you know. So like I've kind of like a couple of projects like with kind of like, you know, interest from producers, but like nothing's really coming of that. And you have like a ton of people just kind of reach out to you, and they're like, hey, what do you have, you know? And immediately like I jump on it, and I'm like, hey, like here's a couple, because like I have lookbooks, like my wife and I kind of like work together, and she's like kind of like helping me kind of shepherd stuff and produce it. So we've kind of created these lookbooks. I have a bunch of scripts and stuff like that. And it's for a lot of stuff like, and this sounds like really shitty, right? But like I want to make a movie, but I also want to get paid. Like I've never gotten paid for any movie I've made, including Peckerhead. Never gotten paid. I've never received a cent on any movie I've made. And I'm just like, for the next one, if I'm gonna, dude, and it's like, I'm sure you know from talking to the filmmakers, if you guys have made films before, I mean, like when you're making movies on a micro budget, like the gun is in your mouth the entire fucking time. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really tough. And it's like, it's great, like being able to do podcasts like this and meet people and just see that the films resonate with people. That means a ton. But it's like, I spent 2 years of my life, and I lost a lot of money on this thing. So I'm just like, I don't want to make a lot of money. I just want to be able to pay my mortgage, you know, every month. And it's not a lot. I just want to be able to pay the mortgage. So yeah, I mean, so I think it's just like, you know, I think there are plenty of people, because I've gotten like a couple of offers for stuff, but the offers have been like, I again like don't see any money. And it's like, I don't know these people. Like they tell me like, listen, like it'll pay off, you know, like after the movie's made and like it gets distributed, or we get this or that. But I'm just like, I just want to get paid as a writer and director. You know what I mean? I don't need a lot. I don't need points. I don't need anything. I'm not asking for like, you know, even like, you know, $25,000. I just want some money to know that like, even if you fuck me over when this movie's done, at the very least, I'm like, well, I have the check that you wrote initially, you know, for the script and like my directing services.
Nice.
And I haven't gotten that yet. So I think, yeah, it's tough. And it's like, I'm sure I would have done, if I were like 25, I think I'd be more apt to kind of like jump on stuff. But at 38, like I want to make movies. And I mean, like you said with Kickstarter, that's kind of like the next plan is like, if something doesn't really kind of turn up this summer or by like fall, I think
Yeah.
we're going to try and do Peckerhead 2 on our own. I think that's going to
Yeah.
be the plan. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough out there. I was really hoping that something, especially when shit started opening up, that we'd be able to kind of like get something moving, because I feel really good about a couple of like non-duh related scripts. But I mean, there's some stuff that there might be some hope, but I'm still kind of, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah.
All right. So where did the concept from Uncle Peckerhead come from?
Okay. I mean, it was really, just like a hodgepodge of ideas that I'd been kind of like, I'd been working on. Like I might have told you guys this before. If I didn't, this is actually like some of this stuff's really cool that I've been kind of developing. But one of the ideas I've been developing right before I started on the script for Peckerhead is I wanted to pitch to Adult Swim this like kind of throwbacky sitcom, like 90s sitcom about a punk band living in a dilapidated like row house with this hillbilly tweaker, and you never it's never explained why this old tweaker's living with them. But it's kind of like I always described it as like a punk rock Full House with a tweaker Mr. Belvedere, or a hillbilly Mr. Belvedere. So I'd been writing that, but then like I had in my 20s like been in bands and toured a bunch, and Jeff, who wrote the music and played Max, he had been in a bunch of bands, and a bunch of like all of our friends, like my brother works in the music industry and books at a venue. So like, just like what inevitably when you're hanging out with this group of people, like everyone has the same tour stories and everyone has different ones. You're just kind of swapping stories and kind of like, just kind of shooting the shit and kind of bonding over the stuff. So I'd always wanted to do a film that kind of really talks about the real life of being on tour, because I think a lot of it is kind of romanticized in film and television. And like for me, doing it the way I did it back in my 20s, I mean, like sleeping in Walmart parking lots, like you're eating, you're eating fucking shoelaces. You know what I mean? Like it's not fun. It's not cool.
No, it's
like, like now I look back on it and I'm kind of like, I'm back to the I look back on it in a romantic way. But, back then, the reason why I stopped doing it was just like even in my 20s, I was just like, man, my body is wrecked. I'm like my gums are constantly bleeding. I'm just like I'm underweight. I'm like just like pissed off all the time. So yeah, I wanted to make kind of a story about what that real life is like. And I mean, horror's been such a fixture of my life, like since I was like a real little kid. And I made some horror shorts up until that point. I produced a bunch, and I went to this horror film festival, which was great. But there was like no really fun midnight movie that like people were just kind of like fucking like psyched as shit to go to. And there were some really good self-serious ones, but like my wife and I went to this one film festival and we were like, afterwards we had I forget what movie we had seen. It's not even shit talking the movie was probably pretty good. But I was like, man, what was really missing at this festival was just like a fun midnight movie. I just wanted to like, have a couple beers, maybe smoke some weed and just like fucking enjoy a movie. And that movie wasn't there. So I started kind of like just thinking how, like, that was kind of probably the kernel, is I was like, I want to make a fun midnight movie. And like, what ideas do I have kind of percolating? And I just kind of was like, okay, I really like this kind of like this baseline concept of these punk kids, like this kind of generational divide. And then I kind of wanted to do something about touring. And especially once Jeff came in and started doing music, it just started kind of like, it's crazy how quickly it kind of came together, because I think we went to that festival in early fall. I started writing it or maybe it was the spring, and then I started writing it in the summer, and then by like fall we had committed to shoot that next June. So it was basically just like a year. But I was like, I knew that like that was going to be the time to do it, because it was also that time where a lot of the people working on it took, you know, a discounted rate or a lot of calling in favors. And it's like just at that age where like, you know, people are about to have kids or about to like move away and like go to the next juncture of their life. So it's like I could kind of feel that moment happening. And I was like, man, I should call in these favors before somebody's like, man, I got 2 kids. I can't do this shit. You know?
Exactly.
But
Although
yeah,
seeing Judy pregnant might have been actually kind of fun in it. It would have been kind of funny. We're up there. Yeah, exactly. No, it's funny though. You said that about the midnight movies. We've been bitching about that for years now. Like I remember when Tokyo Gore Police came through a few years ago, and that was just like that was it was like that was the moment where it's kind of like, hey, where the fuck
That was like over a decade ago now.
It wasn't a decade ago. Holy crap. I didn't know Tokyo Gore Police was that old. But okay, we did get Manborg, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's just not enough of them. And damn this.
Oh, Jim, you're
freezing. Damn this freezing.
Yes. I wish it was freezing up here. It's like plus 35 degrees Celsius. It's crazy.
No, it's a scorcher here too. Yeah, I mean, like with I'm the same way. I mean, I'm so like some of my most cherished memories of like going to film festivals or just going to movies is like going with a group of friends and just seeing some like batshit movie and just for the first time, or even like, you know, going to see, like I remember a bunch of friends went to go see, we traveled to Austin, not for this, but we ended up finding out that they were doing Evil Dead 2 with Robert Kurtzman was going to be in attendance. And it was like, it was also like just one of those things where it was a magical audience of like, just people were like so geeked out to be there and just like drink beer and watch the movie and love on it, that you could just tell like everyone from the front row to the back was like so into it and like so like ready, that it's like, I mean, not that I'm saying like we could ever touch kind of like an Evil Dead 2 kind of level, but that's the stuff that like, I mean, that's better than any drug I've ever done, is like getting to watch movies like that, or even especially like when we played you know, Peckerhead at Panic Fest, and with like my Larry Gun Demon short playing some film festivals, when you have like an audience just kind of like yelling or screaming or laughing or cringing or crying or calling out, I mean, that stuff, like it's indescribable. It's like nothing you've felt before. It's so great.
Yeah, I would love to be watching Uncle Peckerhead again with Bryce in the movie theater, because I can't remember, did we stream it, Bryce? Do you remember?
We had to stream it, Jim. There was no other option.
Yeah. But it would be so good because like almost everybody that would go to the cinema, like we have an art house cinema in town that's our hangout. And everybody there would be pro punk, and then Bryce would be the only metalhead, so we could all kind of look at him and make fun of him, especially when they kill the metalhead guys. Okay, so yeah. We are Film Rage, and we often find, like you'll often find that we are raging about something. Lots of times it's about different things in film and movies and the industry itself. So what's one thing from the film industry that makes you rage, other than money? Because that's obviously one that we could feel your pain.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. There's a lot of stuff. I can be a bit of a pessimist. I'm trying to work on that. But I can be a bit of a pessimist. I think one of the things I was really bitching about lately is that I find, and again, it's been kind of like just, I think it's tough because I think there's still like a lot of like pretty good film criticism, or, you know, like just people writing about film. But I find that like it's also kind of just how things have been Twitterized. But I hate film criticism that it's somebody being like, this is how I didn't like this movie because this movie didn't do what I wanted it to do. It's fine to criticize a movie. Like I definitely watch movies and I'm just like, well, I wasn't really fond of that for these reasons, or it didn't hit me the way I thought it would, or I wanted it to. But I find that like a lot of like criticism lately that I've read, not even related to my own movie, because like I really try to avoid reading much because I think it'll just depress me. But like a lot of stuff that I read is just like, well, I didn't like this movie because I wanted this to happen and it didn't happen. So then it's like, I didn't like it. And it's like, well, then go fucking make the movie. Go make your movie. But that's one of my huge issues is like, I mean, you're watching somebody's vision, you know, it's not your vision. That's the reason why, you know, this person made it, you know? But
I like
that's definitely
that.
what I've been raging. I went on like a little rant.
Nice. Well, that's actually good advice for us because sometimes we do, I think, put our own opinions in it. So that's we'll be more conscious about that. About we probably will still do it, but it's you know I think in my defense, I'm gonna take defense only because I think sometimes when you watch a movie though, you'll go like, hey, that based on how they made that movie, that's no possible way that could ever have happened in the movie. So you can't figure out why they did it. But that, to your point, maybe the director was dropped acid when they got to that point in the film, and it's like then they went from a really bad trip, and then they wrote the next line. So
like it's a tough line to toe because it's definitely like I definitely think there's valid like critiquing or criticism of being like, oh, I mean, I wasn't fond of, you know, the ending, or I wasn't fond of, you know, I think I think the conflict got lost, you know, by the last third of the movie. Like that stuff, I mean, like sharing your opinion of like where you think something went wrong, that makes sense. I wish I could like call up an example right now, but like it's just like when I read some stuff, I'm just like, it just seems like you just wanted to take that idea and make it yourself, and you just didn't like you didn't like certain choices that person made, rather than you know, critiquing certain aspects of the narrative or like certain choices. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. It just seems like sometimes it's like, well, like this is how I would have made the movie, and since they didn't do it that way, I don't like it.
Yeah, we have a friend like that if Ryan Reynolds is in the movie, it doesn't matter how bad it is, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And Bryce and I don't think that way, so it's kind of funny. Okay, so the soundtrack. Okay, I'm sure everybody wants to know where the soundtrack is. I'm sure you've been asked a million times, where's the soundtrack?
Totally. Well, I mean, the good news is we're just, I shouldn't say we are. Jeff is, I mean, legitimately, the only thing that's left in the recording is finishing like Judy's vocals, which are provided by Augusta Koch, who she was in Kaitana and now she's in this band Gladdy. But really, she's the last element of the recording. Jeff recorded just in the past month, like a full album, which has every song from the movie. And then he wrote, I think, like 4 or 5 new songs. And I've heard the demos and some of the rough mixes without Augusta's vocals. And it's, I mean, obviously I'm impartial, I'm being subjective here, but they are like fucking like outrageous. I mean, one of the things that I'm like so geeked out on is this idea of like, you know, this transmedia type of thing where the film is kind of continuing to exist, and this fake band is actually releasing a full record. So really, I mean, he expects to be done by like mid-July, completely, and then it's just sending it to the printing or to the press to get, because we're going to do like a proper LP, like a proper vinyl LP. So I'm like, dude, we're already kind of like working through artwork and kind of like inserts and we want to do like a really kind of special release with it. So like my wife, who's a designer, she's like helping with like the artwork and kind of the inserts, and we're going to do like we're trying to think of like really kind of like crazy shit to put inside. So hopefully by like, it's going to be like, probably, unfortunately, because I didn't realize this because I haven't been in a band in like a decade, but I guess there's so few like you know, vinyl pressings like factories, that it takes like, there's like a 3 or 4 months. There's like the turnaround so slow. So I think like our hope is definitely before Thanksgiving, hopefully earlier. But they'll definitely, by the fall, there'll be a proper LP that will be available.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Dude, excited. some of the new songs that Jeff wrote are like, so I think some of the best stuff he's ever written in any band or incarnation, but like just are like one of the songs is my favorite song, and it's not even in the movie.
What? I can't
Yeah.
wait, because the
Yeah.
music in the movie was so awesome to me. I loved
Yeah.
I even liked the Douchebag Band's song.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the words in it, the music was actually pretty cool. So he did a pretty good job of the music part of that side of it. So
Yeah.
okay, there's a bit of a spin-off of that, because what's VHS then? VHS has the has that EP out.
Yeah.
Some Humans Taste Like Dog Shit. What's that all about?
Yeah, I mean that was just I mean the dude reached out to me and said he was a big fan of the movie. I mean, I'm not sure if he's like a one-man band or what. Like I really didn't do like a lot of research, but he's like, "Hey, like I just wrote this." He wrote one song and he's like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of the movie and I was just inspired and I wrote the song." And he sent it to me like with nothing else, right? And I listened to it. I was just like, "Dude, this rules," and it's like it warms my heart that you cared enough about the movie to like write a song. And I was like, would you mind? I think we like shared like a thing even before that EP was released, and he's like, he reached out like a couple of days later, just being like, thanks for sharing. You know, I was thinking about like I'm inspired to write a couple more songs. If I were to write a couple more songs and release it, would you all mind? And I was like, no, like go for it. like that type of shit. I mean, I love that type of shit. Like if you're inspired by this and like this is like ways in which you want to kind of share your love of the movie, like hell yeah, dude, go for it. And I'm just so tickled that you know, a death metal band would write an EP dedicated to the movie. So there's no real connection. Yeah, there's no real connection to us, or I mean, besides you know the movie in terms of like lyrical content, there's no real connection.
Yeah.
But the guy was just so like nice, and the music's like actually like really good. So I was like, fuck it, yeah, hell yeah, go for it. Keep
well,
spreading
Bryce,
the gospel of Peck.
Bryce, have you heard it? Have you heard the EP yet?
I haven't had
Bryce
a chance yet.
Bryce is a big death metal fan, so I'm sure.
Yeah,
we will have dueling iPods when we come visit you in Philly. He'll be listening to the death metal, and I'll be listening to the Duh album. So
yeah.
So okay.
Yeah, the crazy thing is.
Go ahead. Go. Sorry, no, you go. No, go.
No, I was just saying that I was saying that I'm just like if it sucked, I would have been like, yeah, dude, thank you so much. Like I appreciate it. But I was like, this is like actually like, you know, from I mean, I'm not a death metal aficionado, but I've heard definitely my share of death metal. And it's, I mean, I was really into it. So yeah.
Sweet. Nice. It's a crossover album. Okay, so this being said now, is this, knowing that people are making Uncle Peck music outside of the universe, can you see yourself doing a rock opera? Because we don't have enough rock operas. Like, where's the Tommy for 2023? Or, you know, where is Quadrophenia for 2030? Can you see doing a rock opera?
Jim, this is not a line, or this is not a gag. I'm not being sarcastic. I have an idea and like kind of like a notebook, because I keep kind of like these marble notebooks of like film ideas, you know.
Nice.
And one of the ideas that I've wanted to get off the ground. This is just the thing of like, you know, I have not a ton, but I have like, you know, a half a dozen screenplays and just notebooks filled with, you know, ideas. And one of the ideas that like I'm like, man, if I started to kind of, you know, afford myself opportunities where I could just like, you know, people are just kind of like clamoring for any idea. I have an idea for a musical. It's not horror related or anything. It's more just kind of like a profane comedy about a criminal who falls in love with another, like kind of a Robin Hood type criminal in the city. But it's a musical, and I have like, I mean, like I would basically, Jeff and I have talked about it, and I've kind of pitched him like what my concept is and what the music would kind of be, and the kind of the feel of the music. And I have even kind of like a basic kind of not a beat by beat, but a basic idea of where the script goes in terms of like what the main conflict is, the cast of characters. But I would love to do a musical. I mean, I've been into, I love Quadrophenia. Obviously, I love Tommy. But I mean, like I grew up, you know, in New Jersey, so we would always go into the city to see musicals. My mom was like big into musicals, so I've seen like, you know, everything from like Les Mis, Phantom of the Opera, stuff like that. It wouldn't be as dramatic and big, you know, like that type of musical. But I would love to do like a rock opera, rock musical. Like I would love to do a film version of it and do like fucking Busby Berkeley shit of like crazy song and dance numbers. Yeah, that would be a dream.
Have you seen Anna and the Apocalypse? That's one of our favorite films on Film Rage.
I have. Yeah, I really liked, I think it was the thing of, I really liked Anna and the Apocalypse. And especially like, you know, when you watch stuff like that, I'm always, even if they kind of fumble certain things, I'm a big fan of anybody that kind of swings for the fences or just tries different shit or tries to do something that's not your average run of the mill. So I was really tickled by it. I think my expectations were just so high that it was a little bit of like it fell a little short. But again, I mean, when people like really kind of like swing for it and basically like, you know, get a hit, I'm so stoked. But yeah, I really liked it, Anna.
Nice. Well, Christmas is coming. Just remember that. It's always coming. It's always coming.
All right. So apparently you've got a bunch of notebooks with a bunch of stuff written in it. How many different genres of films do you have ideas for? Are you across the board? I mean, all we've seen from you is sort of humor comedy so far. So
yeah, I mean, so most of the stuff is like horror comedy, just straight comedy. I have that musical idea. Yeah, I mean, it's all about like, I haven't really found a dramatic story that I want to tell. I also find that like, you know, I've talked to some friends that are definitely on more of the dramatic bent and they find comedy so hard. I'm not saying comedy's easy, but I've always found that comedy has been easier for me than dramatic stuff. Like in grad school, I made like a couple of dramatic shorts. I definitely did like a lot of in my directing classes, like dramatic exercises. And some of the stuff like I really liked doing. There's certain exercises, certain scenes I did that I really liked. But I like, as far as I like to direct stuff that I've written, and I just haven't had an idea that I've really kind of like taken to. I have like one kind of serious horror idea that I've been fleshing out, but I'm just like, I'm not there yet, where I'm like, man, I feel like I can see this. And that's kind of like with stuff that I've ended up writing or ended up making, it's like I can really like see it almost from beginning to end in my head. Like I can see like the images, I can see the scenes play out in my head. But I haven't gotten there. So yeah, like really my sweet spot now in the ideas in the notebooks, it's like horror comedy, just straight comedy, and that musical idea.
It's cool though, right? I mean, kind of horror comedy has kind of become its own genre, right? Like you'll hear people that kind of don't like horror, and they can be introduced to horror comedy because of the comedy aspect of it. So it has a bit of a broader audience, I find, because there's the people that are hardcore horror and they'll still watch horror comedy, but some people that are not quite horror fans will still watch it. So it kind of gives you a little bit of options, I guess, right?
And there's been like a few like really good horror comedies released in the past few years, but I found that like with a lot, like there aren't a lot being made, at least like, you know, around the time that we started doing Peckerhead, like if that was one of the reasons Beyond the Midnight Movie, is I was just like, man, I haven't seen a horror comedy that I've really like loved on in the past like few years. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's kind of like it's helpful in terms of crossover. But it's also there's just not as many made when it comes to like, you know, when compared to like the horror genre. So if you can do it well, I'm not saying we've exactly, you know, squared that circle yet, but if you can do like a really solid horror comedy, there are just so few that are like out of this world great, that if you can do one of those, I mean, it's like it's destined to be kind of cult classic-y. So that's kind of like, that's why I love that genre, is like it combines two of my favorite kind of areas in film. But it's also like there's some of the most, I also really like kind of the communal viewing experience. That's what kind of sucked about the past year. It's just like, you know, I started doing this thing on Sundays called Highbrow Lowbrow, where I would invite like, you know, a dozen of my friends every Sunday, and there would be a different person curating each week, and we would choose one highbrow movie that you would watch before you know, Sunday, and then we'd talk about that, and then we would watch the lowbrow movie together and like chat in like Zoom or just kind of talk about it afterwards. Just because like I'm desperately yearn for kind of the communal viewing experience. I love going to the movies with my friends. It's like some of my most, you know, again, cherished memories. And I think horror comedies just lend to just like being able to kind of laugh and kind of like, and they're sometimes the most fun to watch and the most outrageous. So that's why I like that genre is kind of my sweet spot.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. So I know you kind of already talked about budget being a constraint a little bit, but within Peck, what was the most expensive thing for the film?
Damn, that's a good question.
Like, what was the biggest line item, I guess, on the accounting statement, other than paying people, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, so outside of paying people, because probably since we were a SAG production, and even though we were like ultra low budget, like really like the only time we went over budget was, you know, needing to finish a scene and going like beyond whatever it is, like the 12 hours or the, you know, going overtime. Besides that, I mean, it's crazy because like whatever I would give you would insinuate that, and I know you guys wouldn't assume it, but that would insinuate that like it's like somebody asking for more, but it's just like that's just the nature of the beast. So I'd say like probably like something in the camera department, you know, but that's something that you absolutely need. But like it's probably like the biggest line items would probably be like either food, you know, or something, some aspect of camera, or I mean, even like I could say effects, but like like one thing that like I kind of marveled at, Jared Baylog, who is our effects guy, and his assistant Sean, is like, the reason why it seemed like we might not be able to make Peckerhead is we went to like every effects house and they basically like priced us out. They're like, we love this script, you can't afford us, you know, like you just can't afford us. We told them what we had to work with. And finally, like one of the last effects houses we got, we had heard from, the guy was like, listen, this script is so good, like I want you guys to make it. You can't afford me, but there's a dude who sometimes freelances with us, and I know he's trying to go out on his own. You should reach out to him. He might be able to make this budget work. And Jared was great. So that might be one of the biggest aspects of our budget. But I mean, that dude was able to stretch every dollar into like, you know, $10-$20, you know. So he was great, but I would say like camera effects and food, food, maybe gas, because we traveled so much. We shot all around Jersey, New York City, and Philly. It's gonna be one of those.
Yeah, nice.
All right. So yeah, on that note, how fun was working with like practical effects? And by the way, thank you for doing that.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, would happily do it. I mean, it's definitely like when you only have one chance to get it right, it's definitely like, you know, one of the most anxiety inducing moments on set. But yeah, I mean, that everything I've done, you know, from Two Pints, Larry Gun Demon, that had any effects, makeup and or practical, I definitely wanted to do almost everything in camera. Like that was the goal. So it's a lot of fun because like, especially when you're working with somebody like Jared, who's like, just like one, a really fun dude, two, is never like, no, I can't do that. You know, like he'd read something in the script and be like, you know, I've never done this before, but you know what, fuck it. Like, we're going to make this work. So when you're working with somebody who's like, one, hyper creative, two, game for any type of warped thing that you write down or comes to mind, it's a lot of fun. On set, when you only have one metalhead head to rip off, you know, spine and all, you know, your butt is puckered because, you know, if the camera doesn't hit its focus mark, you know, if like the focus marks are off, if David rips the head off incorrectly, if the body falls weird, you know, like anything, we literally can't do it again. I mean, like when that blood poured out of that head, it soaked everyone, including our camera person and the camera. Nice. So that's like, you know, there's no take two. That's one and done. And when it works out, I mean, I'm telling you, that was probably I think that was the second to last shot we did of the entire film.
Whoa.
When that shot is done, I mean, you end on the highest note you can. I mean, everyone is like, I mean, and that's like the last day. So everyone's just like exhausted and kind of like moody. But after that, and everyone's looking at it on the monitor, I mean, like everyone's like, we fucking did it. You know, like everyone's just like, you know, there's high fives all around. Everyone's hugging. There's like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's like, you need that anxiety to have it be such a big payoff. But also, I mean, I mean, y'all know, I mean, if you're doing that CGI, that's not going to look anything like that movie.
It would have
No,
it could have potentially ruined the movie, I think.
yeah, no,
It
exactly. I mean, and that's like the type of shit where it's like, man, I mean, I'd rather, you know, put myself and our crew and our effects guys through hell to get that, and have it turn out great than like just, you know, work easier, and then like just have a guy on a computer, guy or gal or a person on a computer, you know, like just, you know, doing some shitty, you know, 16-bit version of a, you know, a head getting ripped off.
Ube bowl all the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that the trilogy's coming, and we know there's potentially Uncle Peck 2, but are we gonna see? So because you know the Duh trilogy is kind of going in a different direction. Are we gonna see David Littleton in the trilogy?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in Larry Gun Demon, like basically like what I want to do is take a lot of the actors, not just, I mean, obviously Duh will be Duh, you know, in a perfect world, but yeah, I mean, David and a bunch of the other people like Alex and Josh, who played the metalheads, are friends of mine, and I want to have them in different roles. So like basically like there are these roles that aren't in Peckerhead, that are in Larry, that I kind of had in mind for like I'd say like, you know, a half dozen to a dozen of the actors that were in
Nice.
Peckerhead. So yeah, I mean, David's somebody that I'd want to work with forever. So even on like non-Duh universe stuff, there are characters that I've written, or just characters that I've written before I knew David, that I'm like, David would be perfect for this.
Yeah,
He's
brilliant. He's
yeah,
brilliant.
he's like somebody you just, and beyond his brilliance in terms of like his acting chops, you know, which, you know, I could go on forever. He's like one of the best people to have on set, and like he just has like an energy. He just has an energy and speed that like locks in with me and with like a lot of the people that I've worked with for the past decade. So he's like, you know, I told him he can't get out of it. He's just like, he's now a part of the traveling band of freaks.
I love it. Is that the sort of quiet underbelly name of the group, the traveling band of freaks?
No, I just made that up. But yeah, I mean, it is like kind of like we just kind of like film by film. There's just more people that come in that you're like, man, you're in the fold now. You're coming with us on the next one.
You're part of the crew. You know what? I love that about films. Like you'll watch a director that just takes their cast from one film to the next, kind of like Wes Anderson has his crew that comes with him all the time. I love seeing it because you fall in love with these actors, and yeah, I mean, it's just Max's character too is so powerful in the film, that he's such a dolt, but at the same time he's so cute and lovable. You just want to pinch his cheeks the entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I mean. That's what happens, because what you're trying to do on set is like cultivate kind of like a familial, like things are going to get tough, and you just want to be able to trust each other, and also like have a good time and enjoy each other's company, because even when you're not shooting, you're spending, you know, 24 hours a day with these people. But that's like, you know, the first time I met Jeff was like probably like 10-12 years ago at a punk house. And I mean, he's just a performer. Like he just like holds court. And I was just like, and we hung out like all night, like just drinking and hanging out. I was like, man, this dude has to be on, like, he has to be in one of my movies. Like I can't. And then he was in Larry Gun Demon. And after that, like, it's just like, we were fast friends, and like, just like never looked back. But that's like just what happens is like on set, I think it's just like the ultimate test. And it's like, if people pass the test, you're like, I don't want to let go of this person. They're just like such a mensch.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. Okay, so this is our last formal question that we have. And it's a bit of a weird question just because, and I know we had connected right after we saw Uncle Peck last year, and I kept bothering you saying, "Hey, when can we get this stuff in Canada?" And it's funny because we pulled it up and noticed you can get it. It's now on Tubi, I guess, in the States, and Prime in the States, and is it Voodoo? Voodoo?
Voodoo.
Is
Yep.
that it? Yeah. So all of it, but in Canada, you can't get any of those. Like, is there something weird about the
Still.
distribution? Yeah, no. So of course I had to buy it, which I'm perfectly happy to do because now I can watch it every
Yeah.
day I want. It's also going to be my birthday viewing with Dawn of the Dead. But it's one of those things. It's like you kind of talked about it earlier in the discussion about how now it's creeping up in different places. Why maybe you don't even know the answer to this, but why is production houses not doing international releases on this thing? Like, why do they not think that Peck's not going to do well in Uganda or like Bryce's favorite country for film, or like
No,
Ugandan action star.
yeah, I mean, the Canadian thing I think is really weird because we're distributed in Canada, and I would assume that like streaming makes people money. Like not me, but it'll make somebody money. So I don't, and that's the thing is like I feel like we've been distributed. The crazy thing is because I went up for reappointment at my school, so I needed to basically kind of puff up my chest and say I'm so great, I this and that. And I looked at like one of our last quarterly report for from the distributor, and I mean we've been distributed to like probably like 25 30 countries, and it's like some stuff like Spain, I know we're playing on like TV there, because like people are DMing us from Spain and just saying like love the movie and showing us. But then like I've heard similar stuff. I forget where. I forget it. It was somewhere in Europe where they're like, yeah, I mean it's available on Blu-ray, but I'm like it's not on. I forget. There's like some stuff. There's like obviously their Netflix, but then there's like other streaming. There are other streaming services, and they're like, when is it going to be available on whatever the popular streaming services?
Yeah,
and it's like I have no idea how that works. And what kind of sucks is like I think to an extent probably our distributor knows a little bit more about that, but I think ultimately it's up to that distributor in that country. So I forget who the Canadian distributor is, but just like give him shit, get them to
kick his ass.
Yeah, write them, send them very very curt emails. Because I mean that's something where I mean I know for in the United States, like it's been tough to get on some streaming services because of the title, like their money later. But there's certain, I mean, we were told like a few times that like really kind of like well-known streaming services like wouldn't like wanted, we're thinking about doing an exclusive. One of them wanted us to change the name and we were just like, fuck no way. But yeah, I mean a lot of them passed because of the name. I mean we didn't get reviewed by like the New York Times in certain places because of the name, which is like fucking absurd. Like clutching your pearls because you don't like the name. Like I've never heard something so absurd that you won't watch a movie because of the title. Like fucking 2021, you know what I mean? Like this isn't, oh man. Yeah,
and
I mean
Peckerhead's
that stuff
not
that's
even like a vulgar word. It's something 5-year-olds say to their friends, right? Dude, it's like, oh, Peckerhead. Like, yeah, like it's not vulgar at all. It's not like you said, hey there, C word, or like
dude, and the crazy thing is I'm sure we've all, right, and like I've definitely gotten better in that. Like I don't try and compare movies or compare my movie to other movies or just hate on movies, because making a movie takes a lot of time and effort, and that's why like I've kind of softened. But there's so much fucking garbage on some of these things, and it's not like we're not asking for, like, we're not holding out for $1 million, you know what I mean? Like I'm just like, man, just like I just want more people to see it. Like if I'm not going to make any money, I just want to reach the most eyes and ears. I want people to enjoy the movie. Yeah, and it's just like I think some people are just, are just buttholes. It just sucks.
Well, we have a saying on our podcast that everybody is at least medium shitty. So apparently some people are a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right.
Wise words to live by.
So Matthew, thank you so much for joining us on our cute little Canadian podcast that hopefully hits a few different countries. We're pretty big in Czech Republic right now. So it's
Hell yeah.
yay, Czech. So before we sign off, do you want to tell anybody anything else special that you'd like to share, or also where to find you everywhere?
Sure. Really, I would say just check unclepeckerhead.com or subtletyrex.com. It takes you to the same landing page. We haven't done like a ton of updates. The thing that's probably the most updated is we have new t-shirts, which we're selling, like Duh t-shirts, Uncle Peckerhead t-shirts. 20% of the proceeds go to the ACLU. We're trying to do some good in the world while we sell our silly t-shirts. But I'd say, yeah, I mean, that helps to support us just because, we're still a micro budget production trying to get stuff off the ground. I would say hopefully by the fall, I'll be able to announce like a new really serious project that hopefully we'll be shooting in early 2022, if not like, by the summer. And you can just find, you can go to Uncle Peckerhead on Instagram, Uncle Peckerhead on Twitter. I'm Young Bull on Twitter. I'm Kid Dynamat on Instagram. And yeah, I mean, I would just say, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your priest or your rabbi about the movie, and just help spread the word. We're a tiny movie, just trying to inch by inch, just try and get more people watching and kind of talking about the movie. But I just wanted to thank you guys too. This was such a blast, and it's so nice that you all care about it enough to want to talk for an hour about a movie about a cannibal roadie.
It spoke to us at the heart of our core, as we do love cannibals in all forms. So thank you.
Awesome.
We're just going to do a closing. Thanks, Ragers, for listening. Find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Film Rage YYC. Check out everything Film Rage at filmrageyyc.com. Find us on YouTube by searching Film Rage Podcast. We are always wanting to make this a raging blast for all listeners, so please comment, like, and subscribe, and send us an email to filmragecalgary@gmail.com. Dare us to see terrible, terrible movies to fuel our rage, but no matter what you do, please make us rage. That's it for this special episode. Rage on, everybody.
Rage on.
Duh.